Good afternoon, class. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video. Today, the topic I would like to discuss is Archibald Alexander and his use of books, an article I spent some time reading and reviewing. So, to start off, first of all, my name is Jake Tito, and I spent the previous 10 years before my career as a teacher as a rare bookseller. So I have a little bit of knowledge about the book trade and about many of the books that are mentioned in the article. I'm very familiar with the transition of books from the early 1800s into mass production almost, which is something that the article spends quite a lot of time talking about, and how Archibald Alexander thought it was very important that important texts at least be in the hands of as many people as possible in America. So pre-1830s, if you look at a book that was published before that time, it's probably going to be on a religious text if it was published in America. The most famous first American book published is called the Bay Psalm Book. It was really just a compilation of psalms that were printed pretty much as soon as the Puritans could get a printing press together. It's also one of the most valuable books in the world. There's only a few, I think 11 copies known, all of them which are in institutional libraries, mostly on the East Coast. So it's kind of an interesting example, but that was just the first of many, many, many books that were printed on religious topics, starting with the Puritans. But as we can see here, also the Presbyterians were extremely interested in sharing their ideas and philosophies to people at large, as well as Native Americans, and the interest of kind of carrying on the work of the Great Awakening. Now, over time, because they were so focused on printing as many books as possible, the quality of the books started to drop because the goal was to push out as many books as possible as quickly as possible. So the quality of the paper changed. Instead of having rag-based paper that was called laid paper, which has something called wire lines and chain lines. If you've ever looked at a book printed pre-1830, 1840, you can see those lines in the paper as you look at it, especially if you hold it up to the light. Those are called wire lines and chain lines because they would put the pulp on a bed of wires and chains, and it would set there and turn into paper. They switched over from rag-based paper to pulp-based paper, which is wood pulp. So it doesn't last as long, as much, has a much higher level of acid. So those books that were printed in bulk, they tend to crumble if you turn the pages wrong. They can become very brittle over time. The other big transition was, instead of binding the books in calf, which is our best known binding, but also sheep leather and pig leather, publishers moved over to cloth binding. So that became an issue as well. You'll start to see many, many religious books printed in cloth. And finally, the big question we have to ask is, because people like Archibald Alexander, the American Bible Society, and all of these other religious publications were very, very focused on reducing the cost of books and making books more prevalent, did they help bring about the secularization of America because their ideas were copied by secular publishers? For instance, before Godey's Ladies Book came out, which is where one of the first really big secular magazines, most magazines in America were religious-based. But once the printing innovations were brought about by religious-based publishers, they were copied by secular publishers. And there's a lot of questions there if, in some ways, did religious publishing bring about their own demise by creating a secular publishing and book market? It's just kind of an interesting thought experiment to have. But anyway, I want to thank you all so much for taking the time to watch this video, and please comment. I'd love to know what your thoughts are. Thank you again.